There's a moment when the world feels too heavy, when you wake up and even the sunlight seems tired. You stare at the ceiling, listening to the hum of silence, and wonder how everyone else seems to be holding it together, when inside you feel like you're unraveling. It's the kind of day where your reflection doesn't look back at you. It just stares, empty, distant, and you ask yourself, how am I supposed to be happy when everything feels so hard? You scroll through your phone, faces smiling, laughter caught mid-frame, perfect breakfasts, golden beaches, words like gratitude, positivity, and mindfulness floating over someone else's beautiful life, and a small voice whispers, why not me? Why not me? Just for once. To wake up and feel light. But here's the thing, that voice, the one that asks, why not me? It doesn't come from truth. It comes from comparison. It comes from exhaustion. It comes from the illusion that happiness is something that happens to you, instead of something that grows within you. Most people spend their lives chasing happiness like it's a finish line. They think, when I finally get that job, when I move into that apartment, when they finally see my worth, when life stops being so unfair, then I'll be happy. But happiness never lives there. It's never waiting behind some future door. It's strange, isn't it? How we can have everything we thought we wanted, yet still feel empty. You get the promotion, you buy the car, you move to a better neighborhood, and still there's that hollow hum inside, like a song you can't quite remember, but can't forget either. Happiness seems to slip through your fingers every time you try to grab it, because happiness isn't something you chase, it's something you notice. And most of us have forgotten how to notice. We live in a world that tells you that joy is a reward, that it comes after success, that it belongs to people who have made it. But the truth is far less glamorous. Happiness often lives in the smallest, quietest corners of your day. And because it whispers instead of shouts, you miss it. You miss it in the way the morning light hits your coffee. You miss it in that 5-minute walk when your phone is finally in your pocket. You miss it when you breathe, really breathe, without thinking of what comes next. And the more you miss it, the more convinced you become that it's gone forever. I've seen it. People who walk through life with eyes wide open, but hearts closed. They have dreams, goals, and ambition, but they've lost their sense of wonder. They've forgotten that being alive itself is a kind of miracle. They've forgotten that happiness isn't built from events. It's built from moments. We all fall into this trap, the endless loop of when I fix my body, I'll love myself. When I get that person to love me back, I'll feel complete. When the chaos stops, I'll finally be calm. But the truth is, life never stops being messy. And if you wait for perfect conditions, you'll wait forever. Life doesn't owe you happiness. It offers you moments, and it's up to you to see them before they pass. Let's be honest. Sometimes happiness feels impossible when you're drowning in bills, when someone you love disappears without goodbye, when you're surrounded by people but still feel invisible. How can anyone be happy then? That's the question that haunts most of us, silently, relentlessly. The truth is, happiness doesn't mean smiling through pain. It doesn't mean pretending you're fine. It means seeing life, all of it, and still choosing to stay open, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts, because happiness and hardship aren't enemies. They're companions. The people who seem the happiest aren't the ones who've escaped pain. They're the ones who've made peace with it. They've learned that joy isn't the absence of struggle. It's the courage to find light in the middle of it. But most of us fight against that idea. We resist pain. We hide from discomfort. We convince ourselves that happiness will come once life finally stops hurting. But what if the hurt is the invitation? What if the moments that break you are the very moments that make room for something deeper? Think about it. Every scar you carry emotional, invisible, silent, is proof that you've lived through something that could have destroyed you, but didn't. That's not weakness. That's evidence of resilience. And maybe happiness begins there, not in perfection, but in presence, not in control, but in surrender. We've been told that happiness means having more money, more comfort, more love, more certainty. But maybe true happiness is about having less, fewer expectations, fewer comparisons, fewer conditions. Maybe happiness isn't in what you add, but in what you let go of. We live in a world that profits from your dissatisfaction. Every ad, every algorithm, every post designed to make you feel that something's missing, that you're not enough yet, that you're one purchase, one achievement, one transformation away from finally being okay. And we believe it again and again because it's easier to buy a dream than to sit with your pain. But real happiness, it's raw, it's quiet, it's unfiltered, it's the deep breath after crying, it's the laughter that slips out in the middle of chaos, it's the sunset you almost didn't notice because you were too busy surviving. Here's the loop, the human loop. We all fall into it. We chase happiness through effort. We lose it through expectation. Then we punish ourselves for not feeling it. You wake up thinking, why can't I just be grateful? You see others smiling and think, what's wrong with me? You feel guilty for your sadness, as if happiness were a moral duty. But guilt never creates joy. It only deepens the wound. The truth is, happiness can't be forced. It can only be allowed. You don't chase it. You clear the space for it to arrive. Think of it like the sky. No matter how many clouds there are, the blue is still there. It's just hidden. And the clouds, they're not the enemy. They're part of the sky too, just passing through. But when you attach your identity to the storm, when you believe the clouds are permanent, you forget who you really are. You forget that underneath the storm, there's still something vast, calm, and untouched. That's what happiness really is. Not euphoria, not the constant high of a perfect life, but the steady quiet beneath it all, the ability to feel peace, even as life changes its shape again and again. And maybe that's where you are now, standing in the middle of your own storm, wondering how to keep your heart open when everything around you feels uncertain. Maybe you've lost someone. Maybe you've lost yourself. Maybe the person you used to be doesn't fit anymore, and you don't know who's left, and that's terrifying. But it's also where real happiness begins, in the surrender of what was, and the openness to what might be. We all have moments that fracture us, moments that test everything we thought we knew about happiness. It could be a breakup, a betrayal, an illness, a failure, and in that moment, you stand face to face with the truth. Happiness was never supposed to be constant. It was supposed to be alive, and like anything alive, it changes. The problem isn't that happiness fades. The problem is that we cling to old versions of it. We think it should always look the same, like sunshine, laughter, ease. But sometimes happiness looks like getting out of bed when you don't want to. Sometimes it looks like forgiving yourself. Sometimes it looks like not giving up, not because you're inspired, but because you still have breath in your lungs. That's the truth. Most people never tell you. Happiness isn't a feeling you maintain. It's a relationship you build with yourself, with the world, with the moment you're in right now. It's the way you choose to see, because there's always something to see. Even in pain, there's always something to love. Even in loss, there's always something to learn. Even in failure. And when you start to see that, happiness stops being conditional. It becomes your way of being. That's when life starts to shift. Not because it gets easier, but because you get clearer. You stop waiting for the world to be kind before you allow yourself to smile. You stop demanding perfection before you allow yourself to rest. You stop bargaining with life, and you begin to live. That's the beginning of freedom. The moment when you realize that happiness isn't something to find. It's something you return to. It's not out there. It's right here. And yet, we resist it. We think happiness requires effort, control, or answers. But maybe it requires the opposite. Surrender. Maybe happiness is not about fixing life, but about softening into it. What if the real secret to happiness isn't about changing your life, but changing your relationship with life? What if the key isn't to fix every storm, but to learn how to dance in the rain? For so long, we've been taught to chase control, to manage, to predict, to organize, to plan. We hold on so tightly that we forget life was never meant to be held. It was meant to be experienced. And here's the truth that changes everything. Happiness isn't a destination. It's a practice, something you nurture, not something you find. You see, the happiest people aren't the ones with perfect lives. They're the ones who've learned to love life imperfectly. They've accepted that pain, confusion, and uncertainty will always be there. And yet, they choose to stay kind. They choose to notice the small, quiet beauty that exists even when things go wrong. That's the shift. It's the moment when you stop asking, when will life stop being hard, and start asking, how can I stay open, even when it is? Once you understand this, the world begins to look different. You stop chasing happiness like a finish line and start training for it. Like an athlete trains for strength, every day becomes a practice ground for peace. Every difficulty becomes a lesson. Every moment, an invitation to return to yourself. Let's walk through it together, this practice of everyday happiness. Even when life hurts, there are no magic steps, only awareness, repetition, and presence. Each moment, a choice between reaction and reflection. Lesson 1. Happiness begins with acceptance. Most people live their whole lives in resistance. They fight reality, argue with it, deny it, resent it. They say, this shouldn't be happening. But the truth is, it already is. And fighting what is will never bring peace. Acceptance isn't giving up. It's giving in to truth. It's saying, this is happening, and I will meet it with clarity. Because only when you stop fighting reality can you begin to change your relationship with it. Think of someone like Michael Jordan. When he lost, he didn't pretend. It didn't happen. He studied it. He owned it. He transformed it into fuel. That's acceptance. Not emotional numbness, but conscious response. In your own life, acceptance means looking at the pain without trying to erase it. Looking at your reflection and saying, yes, this is me right now. Tired, imperfect, uncertain, but I'm still here. And that's enough to begin. Because happiness doesn't start with fixing your circumstances. It starts with accepting them. The moment you stop fighting the present, peace begins to seep in quietly, like sunlight through a window you finally opened. Acceptance doesn't make life easier. It makes you lighter. And from there, everything starts to shift. Lesson 2. Happiness grows where gratitude lives. Gratitude isn't a list. It's an awareness. It's not, I should be grateful. It's, I am noticing what's still beautiful. When life feels unbearable, gratitude becomes your lifeline. Not the kind that denies pain, but the kind that gives it context. It reminds you that even in the middle of loss, something remains. Think about a time you were going through something heavy, maybe heartbreak, illness, financial struggle, and then, out of nowhere, someone smiled at you, or your dog rested its head on your lap, or the sky broke open with colors you didn't expect. That's gratitude. Not because the pain disappeared, but because you saw beyond it. Kobe Bryant once said, everything negative, pressure challenges, is all an opportunity for me to rise. That's not arrogance. That's gratitude in motion. It's saying, I will not let life make me smaller. Gratitude rewires your perception. It shifts your focus from what's missing to what remains, from scarcity to sufficiency, from surviving to seeing. Try it, even on your worst days. Find one thing, just one, that doesn't hurt. Maybe it's the taste of your coffee. Maybe it's the warmth of your blanket. Maybe it's the simple fact that you're breathing. Proof that life hasn't given up on you yet. Gratitude doesn't change what happens to you. It changes who you are when it happens. And that's how happiness survives the storm. Lesson 3. Happiness deepens when you live with intention. You can't control everything, but you can choose how you show up. And that choice, repeated daily, shapes your entire inner world. Most people drift. They wake up, scroll, react, rush, repeat. Days blur into weeks, weeks into years, and then one day they wonder where their joy went. But joy was never lost. It just wasn't chosen. Happiness doesn't come from luck. It comes from attention. When you start the day with intention, even something small, like today I'll slow down, or today I'll speak kindly, you reclaim authorship over your mind. Serena Williams didn't become who she is because every day was easy. She became her best because every day she chose to show up, no matter how she felt. Intention creates alignment, and alignment creates peace. You can't control the storm, but you can control your posture within it. And when you choose presence over panic, grace over reaction, life becomes less about surviving and more about living. Living with intention is an act of quiet rebellion in a chaotic world. It's saying, I refuse to let the noise define my peace. So start there. Ask yourself every morning, not what will happen today, but who do I want to be in whatever happens? That question, simple as it sounds, can change your life, because happiness isn't about having a perfect day. It's about being whole in an imperfect one. Lesson 4. Happiness thrives through connection to yourself and others. We're wired to connect, but modern life has made it harder than ever. We sit behind screens, compare ourselves to strangers, and forget the warmth of genuine human presence. Loneliness is one of the quietest killers of joy, because when you feel unseen, life loses color. And yet, we often isolate ourselves the most, when we need love the most. To be happy, you must learn to open, even when it's uncomfortable, to reach out, to listen deeply, to let others see you. Not the version you curate, but the real one, the one who's scared, imperfect, trying. Connection doesn't mean constant company. It means authenticity. It's knowing that you don't have to pretend to be fine to be loved. And it starts within. You can't connect with others if you're at war with yourself. You can't receive love if you believe you're unworthy of it. So sit with yourself. Talk to your own soul like you would to a friend. When you make peace with your own presence, every other connection deepens. Happiness is shared. It's multiplied when given away. When you help someone, when you smile without expecting one back, when you make space for someone else's story, you heal a part of yourself too, because joy is never selfish. It's a current. The more you let it flow, the more it returns to you. And yet, even with all this wisdom, all these practices, there will be days when it still hurts. Days when nothing works. Days when you try to be grateful, intentional, accepting, and still everything feels grey. That's part of the journey too, because happiness isn't linear. It breathes, it expands, it hides, it returns. There's a moment every person faces, the test, the storm that shakes your faith in everything you've learned, the relapse into doubt, the voice that whispers, maybe this time I can't get back up. And that's where we're going next, through the heart of the storm, because if you can find light there, you'll never lose it again. There comes a point when everything you've learned starts to tremble under the weight of reality, when all the words about gratitude, presence, and acceptance feel like dust in your hands when you whisper, "I can't do this anymore," and you mean it. The truth is, everyone reaches that point, even the strong ones, even the wise ones, even the ones who teach others how to heal, because no one escapes the storm forever. There are nights when you lie awake and wonder if all this talk about happiness is just another illusion. You've tried meditating, journaling, smiling through it, but life still hurts, and sometimes it hurts in ways that words can't reach. That's the storm, not the kind that roars outside your window, but the one that shakes inside your chest. It's the storm of self-doubt, of fatigue, of believing, even for a moment, that maybe happiness isn't meant for you. You start hearing that voice again, the one that says, "See, you're failing. You'll always end up here," and you want to argue, but you're too tired, so you let it talk. You let it echo until your silence becomes heavier than the noise. We've all been there, at the edge of giving up, not in dramatic collapse, but in quiet resignation. You keep functioning, smiling, replying, "I'm fine," but inside, something small and sacred feels extinguished. This is the test, the moment when happiness isn't easy, or poetic, or inspirational. It's survival. It's holding on to a single thread of belief when everything else feels lost. And here's the truth. Most people don't say out loud, "It's okay to fall apart. It's okay to break down. It's okay to feel like happiness is unreachable," because the storm doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. No one lives in constant light. Even the sun sets every night, and no one calls that a failure. Darkness isn't the end. It's part of the rhythm, and happiness isn't destroyed by the storm. It's refined through it. Think of the strongest trees. They don't grow their roots during calm weather. They grow them during wind, when the soil shifts, and they have to dig deeper to survive. That's what hardship does. It deepens your roots. It anchors your joy into something unshakable. If you're in the storm right now, breathe, not the shallow breath of panic, a deep one, a reminder that you're still here, that your lungs still expand, that life, somehow, is still moving through you. You don't need to have hope. You just need to have presence, because sometimes being here, truly here, is the bravest thing you can do. It's easy to be happy when life is gentle. The real art is staying open when it's not, and in those moments when everything feels impossible. Remember, happiness isn't gone. It's just waiting for you to notice it again. The storm will pass. It always does. And when it does, you'll realize something you never saw before, that you were never alone in it, that every human heart beats through the same rhythm of light and shadow. That pain is not a punishment. It's a bridge. It connects us. It softens us. It reminds us what matters. And that's where the quiet victory begins. When the storm ends, the world looks the same. But you don't. You walk slower. You notice more. You speak less, but say more. You realize happiness was never in the big wins. It was in the quiet endurance. You start to see that peace isn't about avoiding storms, but learning how to stand still in the rain. And that stillness, that calm in your core, is happiness, not the loud, ecstatic kind, the soft kind, the steady kind, the kind that hums beneath everything else. You stop waiting for life to be easier. You start building strength to meet it as it is. And slowly, life begins to feel lighter. Not because it changed, but because you did. You begin to trust yourself again. Not because everything's perfect, but because you've seen yourself survive imperfection. You've seen yourself fall apart and rebuild. Quietly, without applause. And that's where real joy begins. In self-respect, happiness, at its purest, is not excitement, it's alignment. It's that invisible thread between who you are and how you live. It's waking up and saying, I may not have everything, but I am everything I need to begin. When you live like that, the world shifts. You no longer crave constant highs. You start valuing the in-between, the silence, the ordinary, the real, the laughter that breaks through an argument, the friend who stays on the phone when you say nothing, the song that catches your heart off guard. You realize that happiness doesn't always feel like joy. Sometimes it feels like peace. Sometimes it feels like relief. Sometimes it feels like sitting by a window, doing nothing, and realizing you don't need to be anywhere else. That's the quiet victory. The moment you stop running, the moment you stop bargaining with life, the moment you simply say, this breath, this day, this imperfect me is enough, because happiness isn't the reward at the end of your struggle. It's the companion that walks beside you through it. It doesn't wait for the pain to end. It coexists with it, and that coexistence, that harmony, is what makes it real. When you reach that point, you no longer fear sadness. You understand it. You welcome it, like an old friend who reminds you of your depth. You stop trying to outrun your emotions, and instead, you let them pass through like weather, because you know the sky is always blue beneath the storm. That's happiness, not perfection, presence. And here's the final truth, the one most people spend their whole lives searching for. You don't need to become someone else to be happy. You just need to return to who you were before the world told you you weren't enough. That quiet, curious, unguarded version of you, the one who found joy in simple things, that's the real you. And they've been waiting patiently for you to come home. Happiness isn't a lesson you learn. It's a memory you remember. The feeling of being alive without needing a reason. The freedom of being yourself without apology. The grace of seeing beauty even when it hurts. You'll still have hard days. You'll still break, still cry, still doubt. But you'll also rise faster, because you'll know the truth, that happiness was never gone. It was just buried beneath the noise, waiting for silence. And now you found it, not through escape, but through presence. So breathe again. Look around you. The world isn't perfect, but it's still astonishing. You're not flawless, but you're still worthy. And even if life is hard, you can still choose to be happy, not because everything's fine, but because you are free to see beauty, even in the middle of the mess. That's your quiet victory. Not a smile plastered over pain, but peace, deep, grounded, unshakable peace within it. Happiness isn't found when life gets easy. It's found when your heart stays open while life remains hard, because the world will always change, but your ability to notice beauty, that is eternal. So when you wake up tomorrow and life feels heavy again, remember this: you don't have to chase happiness. You only have to stop running from the moment you're in, and whisper to yourself, quietly, truthfully, lovingly, I am still here, and that is enough.